experience. Only through doing research you will get the experience in the field, and your PhD topic may be entirely different. But once you get into a new area, a new arena, and definitely research projects only help you to develop expertise in that particular area. And sometimes through your research, you might have some, ideas how to do some cutting edge research, or how to carry out or further your research, etc. And then definitely curiosity. So a project may lead to another project. A project and working in a particular project may give you a lot of ideas, and then normally there will be a lot of curious questions, and you can answer many of the curious questions in the next or succeeding project proposals. And that curiosity will come only when you continuously engage in your research. And finally, now all your assessments are mediated through kind of assessment scores, and definitely the project proposals will definitely help in your growth as a researcher, as an academician, and of course as a convincing research person as far as the country is concerned. So this slide basically summarizes the entire concept of research as far as science is concerned. So this is an opportunity. This is an area through which you can sell your ideas, and this is an opportunity through which you can earn the research fundings and consolidate the research database for creating new papers, new ideas, etc. It will help in infrastructure development, and it definitely should involve some kind of innovation. Otherwise, the innovative, if the project component doesn't have any kind of innovation idea or innovation component, and definitely the chance is less for getting it or passing it through the funding agency. And this is actually through the research proposals and research grant, definitely a lot of experience. It will actually give you the experience of meeting people and sharing the ideas with people, etc. And the curiosity element, of course, which you develop through running research projects is another important asset as far as you are concerned. And ultimately, this will help you to grow as a researcher. Okay, so these are the preliminary things. And before I start, actually, I'll just tell you some of the basic things, and it may, sometimes some of the researchers may not like it, but I will put it straight across, because that is the way in which I do the things. And then one of the major issues as far as Indian science is concerned, I'm not speaking about a particular subject or science alone, but this is applicable to many of the contemporary scenario as far as research in India is concerned. If you scan through the literature, if you scan through different international papers and documents connected with the plagiarism. Plagiarism is simply, you can see the various kinds of unethical research practices which is there in the research arena. Then you will understand that majority of the things actually point towards India. And why this is happening? As a researcher, once you have a research ethics in you, and once you have a stronger, kind of stronger feeling about the research ethics, and definitely this should not happen, and this will not happen as well. So try to avoid any kind of plagiarism right from the stage in which you prepare a paper, you prepare a concept note, you prepare a research proposal. So this is very, very important, and this is something you have to tell your students as well, because many of the students I know as a teacher for the last 25 years are continuously engaging with the students. You'll understand that the rate of plagiarism, rate of copying the research papers is increasing day after day. So this is a stage in which the Indian research team should actually stop for this kind of a practice. Otherwise, it will be a matter of shame as far as our position in the international community is concerned. Okay. And also, if you can see the earlier statistics and the current statistics, which is available in 2020, it shows that China, the plagiarism content has come down. They copied it primarily because their issues with English primarily. And now in every Chinese university, they have the specific professional team to handle the language component of their paper. And now India is one of the leading countries as far as the various kinds of unethical practices in research is concerned. So this is a stage in which we need to have some kind of a stronger policy towards ethics, and the UGC has already come up with a very strong policy as far as plagiarism is concerned, and also research ethics is concerned. And many of you may be aware that the university has recently received a circular from the UGC saying that this research ethics should be actually part of the coursework in the PhD students examination. So this is one of the major issues as far as this is the scientific plagiarism in India is concerned. This is a statement, one which says that academic plagiarism is rising in India, and so this trend should actually reverse when we think about the good proposals in science. And also, this is basically a kind of selling the whole research to outside bodies. So there are agencies in India which actually will write the paper for you, and which prepare the proposals for you and publish it for you in predatory journals. And this is again another practice which you should actually remove. And all the researchers, including the teachers, faculty members, are evaluated based on the quality of journals you publish. So make sure that it's actually an indexed journal, and make sure that it is not a predatory journal which actually publish anything which you give. And this trend should actually reverse once you are strongly committed to research, and make it a point right from the beginning. Tell the students right from the beginning that you avoid all kind of predatory journals. You may get it easily published, but it will not be recognized by UGC, especially in the new UGC care list. And then always try to, especially those who are working with the science, try to do something which is there in Scopus or in any journal which is indexed in citation criteria. So this is very, very important when before I start. I told all these things in the beginning primarily because this is one stronger point which we have to discuss in the academic platforms whenever we discuss with the research writings. Okay. Now coming to the hard part or core part of the research funding. And we are all here in the online platform primarily because of the lockdown which is created by the COVID. And today probably you might have heard the news that there are some issues with the Oxford vaccine, and some issues especially with symptoms in some patients, and then they are actually rechecking the whole thing. And so probably it may again prolong the whole kind of lockdown, and the business in the online platform will go. So naturally, the government, the GDP in India is actually going down and again. And probably this will have very, very serious repercussions in future, especially for doing research, especially for providing research funds. Okay, so the first thing which you have to remember is that there is going to be a limitation as far as plant funds are concerned. And that you should remember. That means unless and until you have a very, very strong research proposal with innovative ideas, new ideas, then the chance of getting a research fund is relatively less compared to the previous years. Okay, and then there will be severe competition from multiple institutions. And for example, you think about the academic system in India. We have state-owned universities, we have central universities, we have specific research institutions for carrying out research, etc. So that means the funding agencies are limited, but the competitors are increasing. So this is a fact. So in future also, and also the UGC assessments as well as the NACAC assessments put a lot of weight on the research funds received by a particular institution, particular individual or faculty, etc. So this will actually trigger a lot of competition, particularly between the departments. Okay. Then changing priorities of funding agencies. This is again a fact. For example, you look at the DST website, you look at the DBT website, new research fundings are requested from specific areas. And now definitely after COVID, there will be a lot of focus on health, nano sciences, and definitely on the microbial diseases, zoonotic diseases, etc. And there will be a lot of expenditure towards that. That means again, the traditional research funding will be cut down, because many of the funding agencies will ultimately focus on specific areas of research or some mission mode projects or some ad hoc research projects, etc. Okay. And then facilities versus funding. This is also very, very important. Unless and until you have a very strong laboratory inside your academic institution, the chance of getting a fund will be again limited. So it's again that means the individual funding request have no better proposition for tomorrow or today. That means you should have more and more interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary projects. Okay, so that means a college or a university now should promote interdisciplinary and multi-institutional projects. That means if you have no facility in certain aspects, for example, if you are making a proposal on a particular topic, your university, your department has no such a previous experience in working with that particular project. Okay, if that is the situation, definitely the chance of getting it funded is very, very less. So how you can circumvent that? So you may have a strength. That's why you are submitting a proposal. And if you have a strength, and definitely you have to add your strength by inviting people from other institutions who can actually fit well with your proposal. Okay. And if you have, for example, a proposal which demand a particular instrument, it is not available in your department or university. So, but at the same time, it is there in a nearby university which is ready to extend the facilities. So try for a multi-institutional project where wherever there is a weakness from your side, this is actually rectified by the people on the other side. So this kind of a interdisciplinary, multi-institutional project will have a future. And that is the reason why we have to think about that. Rather than individual projects, you should have some interdisciplinary, multi-investigator and multi-institutional projects. Okay. And then specialization. So this is very, very important. That means you have to apply for a proposal, a project where you are specialized. And how will you prove it, whether you are specialized? Just by saying that I am an expert in this particular field. And you should have the supporting evidences. Evidences come only through two things. One, publications in the same field. Second, the research funds you received in that particular topic. Okay, these are the two proofs for your establishing your specialization as well as your expertise. Okay, and now again, when you submit a proposal, you are evaluated again based on the publications. Particularly when you have a high impact publication on a particular research area, and definitely the chance of getting it funded is very good, because it is a proof that your publication in a high impact journal is a proof of your contribution in that particular field. Okay, and as a biology teacher, I know that some of the basic sciences in biology, it is very difficult to get it published in high impact journal, because I am working with taxonomy, I am working with biodiversity. The highest impact factor which I can reach in a normal journal may be less than 5 in many of the cases. But at the same time, a person working with the material science, it's very easy to get it published in a high impact journal. A person working in cancer research or any other medical research, again, the chance of getting it published in high impact journal is much more than a person working with basic sciences. These limitations are there, but this is one of the factors. If you have a proposal submitted to a funding agency where you have no expertise in terms of publication, in terms of research funding and the previous experience, then it is better not to submit. If you are submitting, it is fine, but you should have a co-investigator or a co-principal investigator who can actually supplement, the gap there. Okay. Then conflict of interest. See, there are, if in a particular area, there are a lot of individual research institutions working, and then try to avoid that area, because there will be a lot of conflict of interest, because the funding will go to an agency which is with a proven track record. Okay. And ultimately lobbying. I am not specifically concentrating on that, because getting a research fund sanction, it involves a lot of expertise. For example, if you are expert in a field and many people working in that area, so they may be in the committee, so they know your potential as a researcher, and this kind of a lobbying also will work. That means you have to work in a particular area, prove that you are very efficient in that area. So all these things work, especially when you come for a presentation, or when your proposal comes before screening in a committee. So all these things are there as a basic facts. So all are open statements as far as this discussion is concerned. Okay. Now, coming to the opportunities as far as the science researcher is concerned, and definitely there is a lot of scope for proposing an area which demand the local research support, and a proposal which is relevant to the contemporary context. An age-old basic research proposal will not work in many other things. So your idea should have some application to the society, some application to the science, and if it is an emerging area, it's an emerging area, then chances of getting it funded is very high. Okay. And second is actually highly specialized area. For example, if you are working with the nanomaterials, and if you have proven track records in terms of publication in that particular field, and nanoscience is one area, artificial intelligence is another area, artificial neural network is another area, which of course the government is much interested in funding. So all these things probably work for data science. All these things work for future also. So there are some highly specialized area, and if you go through the websites of DBT, DST, and other funding agencies, then you will understand that what is the priority of the government. And if actually the priority fits in within your area, definitely the chance is much more. And so highly specialized area, the people working in highly specialized area, the chance of getting the funding is more. Then you also choose an emerging or frontier area. And especially those youngsters who are listening to me in this talk, you should actually, even though you are working in a basic area, try to get into an emerging area, because basic science funding, getting a funding and from the national agency is rather difficult in the modern times. So you shift to an emerging or modern area, or work in collaboration, and then the chance is more. And there are possibilities for international collaboration and funding, but all things depends upon your expertise. And for example, every year UGC, MHRD, and other national agencies, they invite proposals. For example, if you even now, if you look at the UGC, there are a series of proposals called for international collaboration, and many of them they prefer academic institutions. This is one thing which you have to remember. Many of these international funding agencies, they prefer academic research institution rather than research institutions, because they always wanted to take somebody for the PhD work, train some students, etc. And this is one of the components in their objectives as well. So the international collaboration and funding, there is a possibility. But here also there is a limitation. Limitation is that these proposals are called for specific areas. And then if that area is actually yours, then there is chance of getting it funded is much more. Second option is that you collaborate in your research with an international collaborator, and then you develop or publish papers, and based on that you will be in the international circuit. Okay, being in the international circuit is also very, very important. So once you are in a circuit, and then definitely getting the connectivities and then getting the chances of funding from international agencies is very, very high. So the funding is very high, and despite the COVID and other economic recessions, many of the international funding agencies in science are very, very active even now. And there are even the private research options, especially in conservation science. If you're working in conservation science, there are agencies which actually fund specifically for the conservation related projects. So even we have one of my students have recently received a small grant, but it is relatively good for their field. For example, a grant worth 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs, very good in supporting the research. For example, WWF Mohammed bin Ruford grant is also there, Macfeller grant is there. So all these grants are there when you do some international work. But remember, they have some specialized or focus areas, and also you should know how to write specifically a proposal for them, and by seeing it and writing it. Okay, I already told you about a multi-institutional collaboration, and which is very, very important, particularly in the DBT, DST. They always prefer multi-institutional project and interdisciplinary projects because a single institution Gone are the days. Now I am sure that UGC has stopped funding. UGC has stopped funding for the major research proposals, so we have to search for other agencies. So naturally, multi-institutional collaboration is one of the inevitable components for that. And I told you already, innovative ideas. And innovative ideas definitely will sell, particularly when you make a new proposal. Social application, I already told you, this is in majority of the funding agencies format. This is one component. What will be the societal benefits and what will be the deliverables for the project? This is very, very important. And there are some theme-based special projects which will be invited from time to time from the part of the research funding agencies. Okay, I'll come to that later. And student projects. I already told you that the students, your research, if there are limitations for you to get a particular grant, and if your student is very active, research student is very active in a particular area, and there are some student projects which can come through the universities, or they can receive it as their personal project. This will always support their project endeavor. And there are a lot of international funding agencies. There are some funding agencies which actually will facilitate some instruments or provide money for some instruments also. You have to search. The students are, many of the students are now aware of these kind of projects, and many of the networks are there which involve young PhD scholars. And the big data analysis is another area which is, of course, of a lot of demand in the international as well as national funding. And finally, let me also tell you that the UGC as well as many funding agencies now promote establishing new centers or centers of excellence. And this is one thing which we can do once you are experienced or once you have established in your field. Then definitely try to establish a new center, specifically on the topic where you are working, or a center of excellence. So the advantage is that even if your university is not getting a fund or is not eligible for a particular scheme, and your center, based on your experience, you can propose. So this will be more relatively easy to operate, especially if your work is specifically or specially focused on certain areas. Okay, so these are the opportunities in front of you. Okay. Now I'll just tell you some of the tips regarding writing a research proposal. And coming to the tips, everything is there in the slide. Good ideas are often rejected because of poorly written proposals. No, I have seen many of the proposals submitted to many of the agencies. Sometimes the idea may be excellent, but the way in which the whole thing is proposed is, it may be very, very shabby, and that immediately could be the reason for this rejection. So how can you overcome that? See some of the good proposals submitted to some of the funding agencies, both with the national funding agencies and international funding agency. See how the approach is, how the idea is actually presented in the proposal. That is very, very important. You have to present the whole idea in such a way that it looks attractive, it looks convincing. All the things are important when you write a proposal. So another issue, particularly in India, see, in many of the foreign countries, if you look at the international projects by very strong, very popular funding agencies, they invite proposals at least 1 year back. But many of our proposals, funding agencies, the invitations comes all of a sudden. Within 1 month, you have to submit the proposal. So what you have to do is that even you are working in a particular field, you don't wait for the funding agency to invite the proposal. You make few proposals ready-made in your hand. Then periodically check it, periodically update it, periodically, make it much cuter, much attractive. And so that means a few proposals should always be there in your hand, so that, when with a short time, you can submit the proposal. So once you are working in a field and you have an idea to submit a proposal, then it is always better in a general format. You prepare everything ready and then chisel it and make it fine and keep it ready. So whatever is the modification, you can make it in the later stages, and then you can submit the proposal. Okay, so keep a general proposal ready in hand. This is very, very important in considering the very short duration or time span between the announcement and the submission of the proposal. Okay. Then, second, look for the priorities of funding agencies. and make sure whether you are fully eligible. For example, everybody cannot apply for every project. Okay, so they will hide, the funding agencies will actually propose the area. And if there is a specific proposed area, then only the people who are actually expertise in that area can alone apply. It is not a general proposal. So that means if a funding request is there in a specific area, if your area is not there, better not to attempt. It's waste of time. Okay. But at the same time, for example, SERB has proposals invited for life sciences, physical sciences, etc. In that category, definitely you can submit a general proposal. But if it is a special request or specific proposal, then if it is your area is not there and if you are not fully eligible, don't try to do that. Okay. Then almost all the funding agencies now receive the application through online. Okay, not after COVID, but before COVID also. So many of the software, there may be some issues of familiarization. So you need to know the software. So don't wait till the last moment. And the last moment, many people, as a common Indian practice, many of you get into or hang into the system towards the last day or towards the last hour. So this will be a hang up. So don't wait for that. And then even before that, you just, because you can edit it before submission, all the things you can do. You practice it, you actually play with the software and then get it, familiar with the software. And then finally you can submit, because there is the provision for editing it till the last moment. So get it familiarized, get familiarized with the software and then submit. Okay, so this is very, very important, because many of the, even within India, many of the national funding agencies, there are differences in the software. The way you have to upload the things, the way in which the final PDF is generated, things are different. Okay, and the demands also, it is different. And in that sense, you have to have a familiarity with the software. And then choosing, if it's a multi-institutional project, make sure that the things work. And the team which you form is actually work in the same wavelength. And then each institution has their own method of getting or providing or granting approval. So some institutions relatively easy. In some institutions like traditional universities, it passes through all the bureaucratic steps which the colonial rule has imposed, and we are following it with much stronger, fancy for bureaucracy. So in that sense, it will take a lot of time. For example, many of the universities, I know, traditional universities, for getting a certificate granted, it will take few days or some, if not a few weeks. So you think about your partner institutions also, how much time it will take. So plan accordingly. Otherwise, last minute, sometimes you may end up with a lot of issues, because all the things demand a lot of time. All the things demand a lot of effort. And then sometimes the entire thing will be wasted. Okay, so you make sure that how many institutions are involved in the project, and how much time do they require to get it through the proposals, permission, and things like that. Okay, and then coming specifically about biodata. The general trend about biodata is that you keep a biodata, you send it to any institution, any proposal, anything. You may be acting in a film, or acting, applying for a position in the university or in a local government institution, or a research proposal. You keep the same biodata. This is a general trend. You make a biodata and then update it and then send it accordingly. This should not be the scenario, because your biodata is, suppose you have 100 publications. Okay. 100 publications need not come in the biodata which you submit to a funding agency. They require only the biodata according to which will prove that your expertise is there in that particular field. What you can do? You can tailor the biodata. So what is actually the requirement? You make a biodata accordingly. You just cut out all the other things which is unnecessary. You need not actually keep the the list of the MSc dissertations and MPhil dissertations you have guided. These things are not required as far as a national funding agency is concerned. It may be required for UGC when you apply for a promotion, but this is not required in a for a funding agencies. What is required is definitely to highlight that you are experienced in that particular field, to prove that you are competent to do the research in that field. For example, you might have attended 20 workshops. Okay, you need not keep all the 20 when you submit a proposal. You look at the the funding agency, what is the theme in which you are submitting the proposal, and you make your biodata accordingly. So this is very, very important. Okay, so all in one will not serve the purpose. So these are the things which you have to keep in mind before you write a proposal for funding. Now, the youngsters, you should also be familiar, because I have seen many of the youngsters complaining that I have submitted twice, I have submitted thrice, but I have not gone through, or I have not been through the selection process. So there are different review criteria, but there is nothing general. Okay, there is nothing general. Each funding agency may have their own review criteria. Okay. And I'll just tell you some of the common review criteria which are followed by the national as well as international funding agencies. Okay. One, potential to advance knowledge and understanding within the field or across the field and benefit society or advance desired societal outcomes. So there will be some broader outcomes, there will be some specific outcomes for every research proposal. So broader outcome should always advance knowledge. So through the project, what you provide additionally in terms of knowledge. Okay, and what do you expect that the outcome will contribute to the benefit of the society or advancement of science and technology. These are the two things you have to invariably explain in the proposal. Okay, if you say that I'll publish some papers, I'll get some additional information, that is not enough. A general sweeping statement will not be enough. So you should be very specific how your work after completion would provide or help in advancement of knowledge. This is very, very important. And second, through this project, through the deliverables, how the society or the science would benefit. Okay, these are the two things which should be there in every proposal. And if you look at any of the project format, this is the first component. Okay. And then second is actually your idea. So if you are actually submitting a project with an age-old concept, age-old hypothesis, then this will not work. It should be creative, original, potentially transformative concepts. So there should be something new. Unless and until there is something new, the chance is less. Okay, so this is the issue. Then plan is well reasoned, well organized, and based on sound rationale. So there should be a background, very, very strong background for you to submit the proposal. So there should be specific reasons for that. It should be well organized and it should be based on sound rationale. Okay, there should be a specific background for you to apply for this kind of a project. Okay, then plan incorporates a mechanism to assess the success. So normally this will not, many of the investigators, researchers will not write it. For example, after this project, how will you carry out the extension of the project? Okay, so you should have a basic plan. Even if it is not asked, you can give it as an additional information. What is your plan or mechanism to assess success? For example, how will you assess that this project is a success? Either based on publications or based on the the product you developed or the patents you developed through the project, and how will you assess the success of the project? And also, how will you, after the project, how will you carry out further the research? These are the things which can be part of the things. So all these things the reviewer will examine. Okay, then another thing is that applicant is qualified to conduct the proposed activity. How will a reviewer assess the qualification of a researcher? Because we all have PhDs, so that means you are all qualified to undertake or guide a research. Okay, but when you submit a proposal, when you submit a project, how the reviewer or the funding agency will assess the qualification? This is only based on few criteria. One, your research contributions in terms of research papers in the subject. Second, your previous experience in conducting research individually or in collaboration, and the proof comes through the proposals or project you received, the money you received, and the workshops you attended, and the experience you earned in the previous years. This is very, very important. Okay, so these are the criteria. Then adequate resources available for proposed activities. This is another criteria. For example, if you are making a proposal in a particular field, and one instrument is inevitably needed to do the entire work. For example, if it is any sophisticated instrument which you propose, for example, if it is a gene sequencer, okay, or a CPMS, whatever it be, or a spectrophotography instrument, whatever it be. But if you have your university or instrumentation facility has no such facilities, then definitely there will be a question. How will you do that? Then you may say that I will outsource it. Fine, but entire outsourcing, outsourcing of the entire experiment may not be possible in a research proposal. So immediately it will be rejected. So you can circumvent that by adding a collaborator in another institution where you have a facility, or you can part of the your experiment can be outsourced. Okay, that provision you have to incorporate in the budget. This is one thing which you have to remember. Okay. Then there are a lot of other criteria which actually determine your intellectual merit, and these are some of the criteria I'll tell you. One is academic performance and background. Okay. Second, the awards and honors you receive. Then communication skills in some projects. Research experience is one of the most important thing. How much experience you have in a particular field. Then international experience, especially when you have a collaborative international project. Then independence and creativity, publications and presentations, research plan, choice of institution, and the references. Okay. And there are two things about references. One is, if you have a research proposal, there are different components, including methodology, background, etc., where you have to refer the recent literature. Make it a point that you should refer the latest literature. I have seen many of the researchers, after completing their PhD, after 10 years, they use the same references. Okay, in a research proposal. They use the same method in the research proposal. It should not be the case. You have to update the references, and you have to add the recent references and support the document. This is very, very important when you submit a proposal, and the reviewers will look into all these materials. Okay. Then prior accomplishments. This is very important. What are your contribution in the field, especially when you submit a project for a larger grant, maybe 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs. No funding agency will give you 40 lakhs unless and until you have something to prove. Prior accomplishments. This is very in terms of your contribution, patent, publications, and experience with the different laboratories. And if you are running a social project, then what are the the community outreach programs which you have already planned as a part of the social investigation? Okay. Then impact on society and connectivity. This is important. Future plans. I already told you have to write after the project. What are you planning to do? Then leadership potential, especially for the projects involving such expertise, individual experiences, integration of research and education, and potential to communicate diverse audience. All these things are criteria. All these things may not come in the same funding agency, but I am giving you an elaborate plan. For example, including science and social sciences. Okay. I'll tell you, the review criteria vary. For example, some of the international funding agencies, they have very specific criteria. For example, National Institute of Health, one of the largest funding agencies in the world, the National Institute, just like National Institute of Science in USA, huge funding. Okay, but they will always ask for three major things. One is need for evidence. Okay, what are actually your evidences available for you to submit a proposal? Only based on evidences they will fund. And second, value for money. For example, if a funding agency give you $500,000, then what will be the outcome? Okay, in terms of the services, in terms of the benefits received by the sector. Then third component is scientific rigor, whether there is science in that and whether it is strongly supported by a hypothesis. Okay. Coming to the Indian agencies, for example, this is the largest funding agency, the Department of Science and Technology, through SERB or other the networks involved or institutions involved. Okay. What they do is that there are different ways in which this is handled, and in Now the major thing is that you have to submit a proposal. And some other proposals you can submit throughout the year, for example, in the general category. Some other proposals which are actually called for in specific categories where there will be a time span. Okay. So after initial internal scrutiny, normally if you submit a proposal, this will be sent to reviewers for review. Okay. And these are called the technical reviewers who will be subject expert in this particular area. And if the agencies or the reviewer suggest a modification including in budget, then you have to do that. Okay. And normally after review, there is a format which I will show you later. And based on after review, if it is the reviewers recommend it, and then definitely you will be asked to make a presentation of the proposal. And in the recent trend is that both DBT and DST, they will not actually call for a direct presentation. Every review will be done by the expert committee, and only in the final stage, only for few people they will invite direct presentation. So make sure that in some other things, the advantage with a direct presentation in a funding agency is that you can justify some other things directly. You can convince the team directly. But nowadays, that chance is less. That means your proposal should be very, very sound and strong. Otherwise, very, very difficult for you to convince, because you cannot write back. You cannot actually directly convince. So everything should be there in the proposal. So proposal should be very sound and strong. So this is the thing which you have to keep in mind, especially in the post-COVID era. Okay. And then you have to actually, principal investigators are normally called for making a presentation. And in the recently, it is not done. So you have to, every evaluation is done based on your writing. Okay. And then finally, the committee approves, you will get the grant. Okay. And normally they will ask for changes in the budget, and then you have to submit the quotations, etc., as far as DST is concerned. Anyway, and then one should you have to remember is that there should not be any pending utilization certificate and statement of expenditure. And even if it is there not from your department but from your university, sometimes the grant will not be granted. So the university's system should be actually adequate enough to submit all the UCs and SOEs on time. For example, MOEF few years back, they have stopped funding for a particular university if any department in the previous years had a pending UC or SOE. So this is very, very important. Once you receive the grant, make it sure that you submit the UC and SOE on the stipulated time. Okay. And then what are the assessment criteria? The assessment criteria is, the weighting or the weightages may vary. Okay. And it may vary between institutions, between projects, etc. So I'm not going into the details of that. So the general format will be something like this. This is actually a general format. It may vary from institutions to institution. And one is suitability of proposal, whether that proposal is suitable for funding. This is one criteria. Second, competence of the investigators. This is very, very important. Whether the investigator is competent to apply for a project. I told you already, this is assessed based on the publications, your experience, and your work in a particular field. Okay. Then facilities available in host institution. This is important. Already I told you. Then objectives and relevance. And I have seen many proposals submitted by many of the faculty members with 10 or 15 objectives. Impossible. Impossible in a 3-year funding period, you can fulfill all the 15 objectives. No. You should be very, very focused. What are the primary objectives? What are the secondary objectives? And how and why it is relevant. So the objectives should be very, very precise, and you should plan accordingly. And the relevance of this is very, very important. And second is methodology. See, if you have 3 objectives, for example, to deal with that. So you have to write a method and work plan to achieve these objectives. And many other proposals I have rejected primarily because you have an objective written on one side and you have a different work plan. It should not be the case. It should be complementary. That means if you have 5 objectives, and there should be 5 kind of methodologies to achieve these 5 objectives. And you have a work plan to achieve these objectives, not something else. Okay. So this should be these 3 components: the objectives, the methodology, and the work plan should have it should work in tandem. and then it should have a strong correlation. This is one way of assessing a research proposal. So make it very, very clear. Then you methodology part, many other researchers will not write in detail. No, this is one area where you have to show your strength and your competency. For example, you have a 5 objective, and how there should be 5 components in the methodology to achieve objective 1, to achieve objective 2, etc., etc. This is very, very important, and your work plan also should actually go in connection with that. Okay. And normally the funding agencies will sometimes recommend alterations and improvements, and then you have to incorporate that and submit it on time. Okay, based on their recommendation. Then you have to write strongly what is the outcome of the project, how it will benefit the science, how it will benefit the society. These are the 2 major components which you have to look into. Then nowadays, many of the funding agencies specifically request for what is the industrial interaction, collaboration, etc. This is one thing which you have to write. If it is not there, you have to write nil. Okay. And normally a project is graded in a 10-point scale or 100-point scale, and based on the grading only this selection and recommendation will come. So these points you have to keep in mind when you prepare a research proposal. So it should be strong enough to convince the the reviewer. Okay. Then what is actually the formula for winning the research proposal? So it includes all the things. For example, right from the planning stage to preparing the project proposal, preparing the data to convince the the research review funding agency, and all the things ultimately will go in hand in receiving the success. Okay. So if you go through the funding agency format, this will have a few components, and normally first part of the proposal may be to ask about the personal details of PI, co-PI, co-investigator, advisor, consultant, etc. And it should also have a basic understanding about the differences between that. I know many of the senior faculty members may be aware of that, but only thing is that I'll tell you is that principal investigator. There should be only one principal investigator. And in the case of a DBT, if it is, or a DST, if it is a multi-institutional project, again, there can be multiple principal investigators. They are called a co-principal investigator. And co-principal investigator and co-investigators are different. For example, if your research proposal involves 3 institutions, that means in all the 3 institutions, there will be a co-principal investigator. Okay, and one investigator from one of the agencies may be coordinating all these things, and he will be called the principal investigator. Okay, suppose you are submitting a project alone, then definitely you will be the principal investigator. Normally, for multi-institutional projects, it is mandatory that you can have co-principal investigators in all the institutions. Okay, then if you are submitting it individually, there should be a co-investigator also. This is a mandatory for many of the funding agencies. For example, in your absence or in your who will do the project? This is a question. Okay, and then normal tendency in many of the Indian institutions is that you put some of your friends as a co-investigator. It should not be the case. The co-investigator should actually equally contribute to the project. Okay, and he should have some experience also in running the proposal. So if you just put a naam ke vaste, or just for the sake of the convenience, you put a co-investigator, this is not good at all for getting it funded. This is also very, very important, even you treat it unimportant. Then if you are, basically if I evaluate, I consider it like this. If you have a weakness in running a project, for example, if you are running a interdisciplinary project which involves science and society, for example, you can do the science part. Then who will take care of the societal part? Who, for example, is an economics involved or social science involved? Then definitely this project should have a co-investigator who has experience in the other area of the research. So all these things you have to keep in mind. Okay. Then advisor normally is not permitted, but some of the international projects, they always require an advisor. Advisor will be the person who will be giving you advices how to execute the project and run the project. And sometimes some of the projects may also give a facility for consultant. Normally, advisors are not there in regular projects. Okay, but it's a project specifically for certain purposes. You can always keep these two. Okay. Then there should be a problem statement, or there will be a concept note. And the concept note is an area or a single page statement which explains why this project is about, what is it for, and what are the outcomes in one paragraph or in a limited number of words. This is just like writing an abstract for a research a paper which you submit in an international journal. So make sure that you write the concept paper only towards the end after completing the proposal. It should actually reflect everything, because normally a reviewer will first read the concept paper or the problem statement and the significance of the research. This is very, very important. So you have to spend a lot of time in polishing it and reframing it, correcting the language and making it impressive. So this is very, very important. Then purpose of the project, overall goal, specific objectives. I told you there are two kinds of objective. One set is limited number with specific objectives, and second, whatever may be the outcome and whatever may be the added things, you can put it as an additional or general objectives. So there should be specific objectives and general, additional objectives or general objectives. Okay. And research design and work plan. I already told you, if you have 3 objectives, you should have a research design to achieve these 3 specific objectives. Okay. And you have to show the instrument, you have to show the methodology. You need not write the entire, just like research paper, you need not write everything, but you can show the references. And you have to show the instrument, where it is available. How will you execute this experiment, especially when an instrument is not there in your university, things like that. So you have to be very specific in that. Okay, so we have to have a stronger research design and stronger work plan. Work plan is also very, very important, and you can have a per chart or chart like that. For example, if the funding is for 3 years, then in all the 3 years, in quarterly basis, okay, in a particular year, 4 quarters, in quarterly basis, what will you do? There should be a better picture of that. Okay, and then finally a biodata. Applicants' qualifications and capabilities. It is not biodata, but you have to state specifically how you are qualified and how you are capable of running this project. Okay. Then some funding agencies ask for an evaluation plan. For example, how will you evaluate the success of your project? And finally, a budget. Budget, remember, whatever things you propose in a budget, it should have justification. For example, if you are normally a project will have a project fellow, okay, and if you are asking for 2 project fellows, why is it for? What is the purpose of requesting for our submitting application for 2 fellows? Why 2 fellows are important? Why a particular instrument is important? If it is not available, if it is available in your institution, why you need an additional instrument? All this justification you may have to provide. Otherwise normally the reviewers will cut it down. Or if a particular instrument is not there, as you are aware, the whole experiment you cannot actually do. So these kind of justifications you have to write when you write the budget part. Okay. And finally, you have to add your biodata with the list of publications. I told you, if you have 100 publications, no need at all to include all the things, but those who are in good research papers, journals, and which are relevant to that project which you are submitting. Not everything. Okay. And the data sheet questionnaire, if it is a project which involve data collection questionnaire, you have to add that data sheet also as an appendix. Okay, just to convince how you write. So tips on writing the proposal, you need to actually convince. I told you many of the proposals in the modern era or after COVID, you may not get a chance to explain yourself. So everything should be in paper. What is your strength? What motivate you to do the work? And what is your qualifications to undertake this research? Everything you have to state. You have to explain in a minimum number of sentences. Not say like a story thing, but very, very concise and precise should be your justification. Okay, to convince the others. I already told you how to prepare a biodata. This is again treated very casually by many of the faculty members, and there are differences between resume, curriculum vitae, and biodata. Okay, and normally resume is something which is a summary of one's education, skills, and employment. when application for a new job, it will be 1 or 2 pages, etc. But normally the researchers in research proposals, what they require is actually a curriculum vitae, which means list your skill, jobs and positions held, degrees, professional affiliations, and everything in a chronological order, and normally 2 to 3 pages. Many of the funding agencies, they request biodata in their specific format. Remember that you have to submit the biodata in that format. For example, some of the funding agencies sometimes will not ask for your the percentage of marks in your PG or degree, etc. Nothing is asked, but their strength will be always on the biodata based on the publications. And publication also, you remember that the publications, you have to order it reverse. For example, latest publications first and then the oldest one. So not vice versa. Okay, because every researcher is assessed based on what is your current contribution, not what you have done 10 years back. So remember that you have to give a list of publications which are recent rather than the older ones. Older ones are not counted at all, especially when the recent proposals comes. So all these things you can make based on the demand from the funding agency. Okay, so highlight your profile, because this is the only way in which you can convince the funding agency. You make your strength and your intellectual merit, what are the broader impact which you have created in research, etc., in a convincing manner. Okay, so you should actually be in a position to write a strong and convincing biodata. This is one thing which you have to do. So when you start writing a proposal, I told you older wines will not sell. So you have to have a new bottle, and you have to have a new idea also. Okay, new bottle as well as new idea. Okay, and so how will these 3 questions are very, very important. One, does it address an important problem? When you before writing a project, these are the questions which you have to ask by yourself. Does this proposal, this idea, address an important problem as far as the country is facing, as far as science is facing? Okay, and will scientific knowledge be advanced? In some way or other, your research will contribute to the advancement of scientific knowledge. And third is that does it build upon the or expand the current knowledge? Then finally, is it feasible? For example, you may have a lot of ideas, but whether this will be done, this can be carried out with the facilities that you have, whether you have the facility to implement that or investigate that. These are the questions which you have to ask. Okay, and you make it a point that try to, as far as possible, write in an active voice than in a passive voice. And that is also very, very important, because that is a modern style of writing. Research idea. I already told you three questions: what is the hypothesis, why it is done, and how it is done. 3 questions answered should be answered in the proposal. Okay, and already I told you there should be specific and measurable objectives. Okay, and this is very, very important. And illustrate a detailed research plan. Normally, this part is not given priority or importance by the funding agencies, the investigators. So you have to have a research plan laid out for 3 years. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult, very, very difficult for any kind of approval. Okay, and visualize it in a single page. This is where your creativity work, because even though the funding agency will provide you a format, but if you can present it pictorially, impressing the evaluators, this is very, very important. How will you achieve these results in 3 years? And 3 years, what is your plan? How to execute the project, etc. This is very, very important. Okay, and okay. I'll tell you, these are the things which are very, very important. One is actually how will you write a concept note? Okay, a single page document to prove that your proposal is effective, and something which actually demand funding by the funding agency. One is specify the goals. I'll share the slides with you, so you'll get a broader picture. And study goals. Okay. You want support from which funding agency to do what? Okay, Then problem, what is the background which for your research proposal? Okay, and that you have to lay out very clearly. Then significance, why this is important to the field. Okay, then the research question, what hypothesis will you test? And design and analysis, and how will you design, what will be the how will you analyze the result, what will be the statistical package, or what will be the the work, how will you execute the data analysis. All the things should be very, very clear. And then the team, and how, which is the team which work for this project. So all these 6 questions, if you have answers in a convincing manner, that will form a concept paper, or that will form the background for you to execute this work. Okay. And then collaboration. I told you, collaborate with the areas, fill the gap. Your expertise, same expertise, if you select another person, this will not give you any additional advantage. You select an investigator who will actually fill your weakness. That should be the criteria. Okay. And you should form a team, so that you have to discuss, then you have to write, everybody should see the proposal, and everybody should share the methodology based on their expertise, and then finally come to the conclusion. And this is how the joint research proposals are done. And this can be done even in online discussions in the recent past, because we have just now submitted a proposal based on a series of Zoom meetings, which actually provided us a lot of ideas, a lot of inputs. So even if you submit in a Google Doc file, then everybody can again work in a single file, and then you can come out with a better proposal in a very short period of time. So this is important. Then, so when you normally, just like a research paper, in your research proposal, you may not actually in a position to find out mistakes. What you can do? You, after completion, you give it to your colleague, or a person whom you actually believe. That's very, very important. Ask him to read it, and then whether it is convincing for him, he understands everything on that. How the proposal is done, how it is executed, etc. So then, after hearing, you draft reviewers. Then you, after hearing the reviewers or of your own, then you can improve that and add to that. Okay. So it may be your supervising teacher sometimes. Okay. Sometimes even a student. Sometimes some of the ideas come from when the student execute their PhD work. Then you wanted to submit a project to advance that research. Fine. Okay. It may not be. In my opinion, some of my proposals, I'll show it to my student, to give you, especially when you come to a new method of data analysis, or whatever may be the new software involved in that. It is fine. So somebody else should actually read, and so that whatever the additional points will be always benefit. Okay. And always, I told you, don't wait till the last moment. Leave some time to make revisions. This is very, very important. You have to chisel it. A very, very long proposal, nobody will read. It should be very, very crisp and to the point. Okay. And pre-submission review. Okay. Ask a seasoned colleague for comments and suggestions, and take out the take in the criticism and check. Leave your ego at the door. Allow time for the reviewers. If you believe that you know everything in the subject, and then if your ego is thick enough to not to show it to others, then it will not work actually, especially when you work in a team. Okay. And then finally, you have to read it again, take a printout, because they're leaving everything in the computer and working with the computer. One of the disadvantages is that you may sometimes may not find out the mistakes. So what we do, especially when you submit a research paper, is that we take out the print towards the end, the final draft, and leave it, never read it the same day. When you are relaxed early in the morning, you will read it again. So you will find a lot of mistakes in that. Just like that, a final proposal, before you submit, you take out a printout and then read it critically and correct it, and finally upload it. Okay, this is the way in which you have to do. And coming to the next part of my presentation is actually a good presentation, because once your proposal is submitted and it is reviewed, and normally you will be asked for a presentation. It is not a presentation just like in a seminar. You have to be very, very focused. Okay. presentation in a seminar and presentation for funding are entirely different. Okay, because this is just like selling your product in a seminar, in a project funding presentation. Okay, so you should not actually beat around the bush. You come specifically to the goals and objectives. There should not be any background, just one statement why you are doing the background of the project, then specifically come to the title and present the project very concisely, state the significance very clearly, what is your hypothesis, what is the research problem and solution, and the methods and rationale. Okay, so this is the style of presentation in a good presentation. Okay, and normally there are three essential questions which you have to for convincing the reviewers or experts what you intended to do, why is the work very important, and what is already done, and how are you going to do the work. All these things are very important when you do the work. Okay, and then good presentation, you have to highlight the significance of the project, and you have to highlight who are all the investigators in addition to you, and how you are competent, and how the responsibility is shared between the investigators. And third component is the innovation component. What is something new, novel in your proposal, and what will be your approach? Okay, how will you design the project, and how are the methods you are going to employ? And then finally, what is the environment in your lab, in your collaborators lab, and how will you jointly execute this project? These are the things which is required for a good presentation. And always provide a very focused research plan. 3 years, what are you going to do? And always be specific, because most of the funding agencies will provide you 10 or 15 minutes only to impress them. And so this is a time in which you have to clarify the ideas, and then be realistic. Don't argue that you will do that, you will do this which you cannot do. No meaning in becoming over ambitious. Every people is over ambitious, but when they make a presentation for funding, you should project only the things which you can achieve from the funding, with the help of facilities available. Okay, and you can also frankly discuss the problem areas, if any, in the proposal. Okay, and then you also have to offer the solutions. For example, if an instrument is not there in your lab, how will you do this work, and where will you outsource it? All the things you can explain, so that this will be convincing for the reviewers. Okay. Then reviewers cannot read your mind. So whatever is there in your mind, you have to explain. Okay, don't assume that they know everything what you intend. And also, sometimes you may be a very famous person in the area of research. Okay, but don't think that every reviewer is aware of your biodata, your strength, and your status. It is only you have to tell them and convince them. This is very important. And once the reviewer tells you about some modification, then prepare a reviewer-friendly application. This is very important, and suggestions. Okay, things you organize should be very clear and convincing. This is very important. Okay, and don't give up. This is a final advice of me to you, the young, especially for the young researchers, because I know some of my professors who said that I have submitted a proposal, I am a stalwart in the field, but they have not granted, so I am not going to submit any more application. So nothing to for the funding agency, nothing to lose. Only you are going to be the loser. Okay, because I have submitted several proposals and several got rejected. Okay, and few got approved. So you should not actually give up. And once you present, then you will understand what are the limitations of your proposal. Accordingly, you can modify it. You can also give it to another agency, taking all the advices in and correcting it, and making it very precise, and what are the weaknesses, then you will understand. Then attend each criticism you attend, and keep positive tone and attitude. So these are the things which you have to do towards the end. Okay, and these are the elements of an outstanding grant application. One, new original ideas, then pilot data, that is some novel data. You should be always focused, incisive research plan you should have. The knowledge of published relevant work, and experience in the essential methodology, future directions, and contingency plans. Okay, all the things, if you are in a position to explain very concisely, then this is the way. So this is the way in which this is graded. Your proposal is graded from exceptional to poor. Okay, if it is very good to excellent onwards, then naturally the chances of getting it funded is very, very high. And also an element of luck is also there, because if in a particular tenure there are 10 good proposals and the funding agency has limited money, then normally even good projects and very good projects may be avoided, will not be funded. So that is why I said an element of luck is always there. Sometimes in a particular phase where the presentation is there are not many good proposals. Then your proposal may get funded. So all these things basically work in a combination, and that is why I said there is an element of luck. Okay. These are this is a most important slide before I stop. Why the funding is not given to your proposal? One, lack of new or original ideas. So same project which is published very frequently from Indian researchers, normally the chance is less. And diffuse, superficial and unfocused research plan. If you have a good idea but the research plan is not there, to convince the research reviewers, then your project will be rejected. Lack of knowledge of published relevant work. For example, if you are submitting a proposal in a particular area, you are not including the the most important research papers, then again this is an indication that you don't know anything about the current activities in this field. Okay, lack of experience, already told you, in the methodology. For example, if you are submitting a project in nanoscience and you have no published work in nanoscience, absolutely no way in which you will get it funded. Okay, and then uncertainty concerning the future directions. So you know the research, but you don't know what will be the future of this work, because every funding agency will believe that this project may lead to another project, and this may lead to another set of knowledge, development of another set of knowledge. Okay, then questionable reasoning in experimental approach. Your experiment should actually be convincing, and it should be in a position to achieve that particular objective. Already I told you. Then absence of acceptable scientific rationale. Then unrealistically large amount of work. For example, if you have 15 objectives and huge amount of work is proposed, normally it is not, because you have to do teaching, you have to do part-time research. So you should keep that in mind. Lack of sufficient experimental details. I already told you the methodology should be very, very precise, and you should convince the reviewer. And then uncritical approach, because if it is very casual, then normally this is not getting funded. And these are the components. I'm not explaining it, that if you go through the format of the research proposals, you will understand that fact sheet, general information, projected characters, project description, project phase details, all these things. Okay, finally yours biodata, all the things like that. Okay, and name of referees who are expert in the area. And this is also very, very important. When all the funding agencies require a set of referees, and remember, you cannot recommend a few referees who have no experience in that particular field. Normal tendency is that you just propose some of the people who are whom you know. That is not the important thing, but you have to propose a set of referees who work in your field, who are not from your university or your system. And this is very, very important when you submit the proposal. So applications, different funding agencies, you can go through the funding agencies request, slightly different, but the basic concepts are all the same. And also you make it sure that you check plagiarism also towards the end, use appropriate software, like Urkund is very bad, UGC proposes Urkund, but you have some good things like Turnitin or other software which are very good in plagiarism checking. So post-COVID, there are a lot of challenges. Especially there will be reduction in funding. So you have to have a proposal which is self-explanatory and convincing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Biju Kumar, for a wonderful illustrative, lecture on the designing the research projects in science. Now the session is open for clarification. If the participants have any questions to be clarified, you can ask directly Dr. Biju Kumar, and he would be happy to answer. Or if you are shy in asking online, you can just drop in chat box, and I'll on your behalf ask the question. Any questions? Yeah, there's a question from Miss Shalini, and she asks us, please let us know the funding agencies for minor projects. Dr. Biju? Yeah, Dr. Biju,
there was a network issue. Okay, yeah. There's a network issue, so you can ask the questions again. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm repeating the question, sir. Ms. Shalini has asked whether she wants to know about the funding agencies for minor projects.
Unfortunately, there are no specific national level funding agencies who will provide you the minor projects now. This is a situation because UGC has already stopped, giving minor projects. But now I think the MHRD has a plan to, reinstall the whole scheme. And if it works, and that will work. Otherwise, you have to depend upon state level agencies, example, state environment or science and technology departments, etc. National level minor project granting agencies are very less. And I think all of the faculty members are from science stream, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But in social sciences, yes, there are some agencies which will give you minor funds. Otherwise, at present, it's not that much easy. I think in Andhra Pradesh also, science and technology department is giving some funds, isn't it?
Yes, sir. But we have TS cost, that is the Telangana State Council for Science and Technology, and earlier we used to have AP cost. So yes, they are also giving some small funding for minor projects. As you have rightly pointed out, the state agencies or state level agencies or state level departments give some kind of minor projects. For example, you can reach municipal authorities to get some funding support. You can reach the biodiversity board, fishery departments, and all such kind of various agencies where they have some component for the supporting research. If you write, as sir has rightly mentioned, if you write a good project, convincing project that has objectives that are achievable, then the funding agencies will support you. Yeah. So
that is true. But only thing is that the especially with the decentralized governments in Andhra Pradesh also and Telangana also, a lot of money is there with the local governments. But only thing is that you should develop a project which is socially relevant, and also directly with, not just for publishing a data or a paper, but it should have some benefit to the society. In that sense, a lot of projects are there, which is even in almost all the states, they are ready to give fund. Only thing is that they need some solution for their issues. Okay.
Is there any other question? I'm just waiting for the questions to pop up, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Sir, if there is a gap in the research work, if we are newly beginning after 10 years gap for the research,
yes, ma'am.
How to justify?
Because there are specific programs for the women scientists.
Okay.
And both the DBST and DST has a specific scheme. For example, the women scientists or the teachers, faculty members who have a research gap because of your family reasons, etc. and and then you can specifically apply for the women scientist scheme, because that is essentially meant for that, especially those who have actually break in their career and who could not actually continue the research after PhD. And then you can definitely, those women faculty members can always try that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And those young faculty members who are below 40 can always try the fast track, the young innovator scheme, as well as young researchers funding of ACRB, where you will not get the salary, but you will get a good research grant. Relatively easy also compared to the other normal projects.
Yes. Yeah, there was one more question from Ms. Sarita, and she was asking about duration for acceptance of research proposal.
Well, that also depends, always depends. But normally, you will get a positive or negative reply within 6 months. But that is a standard time. But sometimes it will take more time. For example, I was sitting in the Science and Technology Department in Kerala for 3 years on deputation, and I know the main problem which we face is that getting it reviewed from the experts. Okay, because experts are all busy with their own work, and then even after, despite continuous requests, they will evaluate it and finally give it. All depends upon this kind of an exercise. And some of the funding agencies, in the recent past, everything depends upon the amount of research grant that they have, because research grant is cut for many of the agencies in the recent past, especially after COVID. This issue is there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions?
It's time for lunch for many of them.
I know. This is a wonderful, way of understanding that, how many of us. Is there somebody who is asking any question? I heard something. Okay. If not, then I thank my friend Dr. Biju Kumar. Is a wonderful orator, and you have seen that how he has given you information and idea about how research projects needs to be written properly, designed, thought about deeply, and written properly. I agree with him that only and only good research projects that are written wonderfully well, get the funding. We have seen lots of research projects just jumbled, cut and paste, or they get lost, because when you yourself are confused at the beginning stage itself, writing a research project, how are you going to do the research, and why should a funding agency give you so many lakh rupees to conduct that thing? So you need to plan carefully the research projects and all those things. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of the Osmania University UGC-HRDC and the participants, I would like Dr. or Ms. Vasanta Amrita. Ms. Vasanta? Ms. Vasanta?
Yes, sir.
Madam, you are there. Thank you very much, madam. Can you just propose the formal vote of thanks for Dr. Biju Kumar?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, it is my honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks to Sir Biju Kumar, sir. And you have explained, your lecture is very inspirational and very elaborated, sir. And on behalf of UGC-HRDC coordinator and this course coordinator Chelamala Srinivasulu, and from the participants, GDC faculty members, and my own behalf, I am proposing vote of thanks to sir.
Thank you, Vasanta. Thank you, Professor Srinivasulu, for the invitation.
Yeah, it was our pleasure to host you, sir. Thank you so much. And maybe UGC-HRDC is going to, connect with you once again for other programs. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, participants. We are going to break now for the lunch, and as you know, the schedule will restart at 2 p.m. And this afternoon, from this afternoon, as I had been telling you, that afternoon sessions, although sometimes we feel that afternoon sessions are little kind of after lunch we will be feeling sleepy and all those things, but we are planned the program in such a manner that afternoon sessions would be having more of hands-on kind of experience. So we are midway, we are on the third day. 2.5 days are done, and another 2.5 days, sorry, it is almost about another half day is left. So what I am going to do from now onwards is we are going to get into the wonderful world of statistical analysis, and this afternoon we are going to learn from Dr. NCH Bhattacharyalu from Department of Statistics about the importance of statistical tests, about the importance of different techniques that we use in research analysis, and subsequently it would be followed by some sessions from myself and my team that is going to teach you about how to go about doing statistical analysis. Those of you who are coming from mathematics background, for you might be thinking that okay, we know about all those things, but for us it is like how the data is handled and how the data needs to be treated to get an inference. That is what we are going to do later in the course from tomorrow onwards. So we'll break now, and we'll join once again at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you very much.